Hey, today I have the pleasure to host John. Hi, John.
Hey, Yusuf. Good to be here.
I'm super happy to have you. And can you introduce yourself to the community?
Yeah, sure thing. Pleasure to be here. My name's John Sullivan. I lead the go-to-market team at a company called Mostly AI, and we're an Austrian-founded Series B startup working on a pretty big problem, albeit a small team, which is that the majority of the world's valuable data remains underutilized. It's difficult to access and share. Often it's proprietary. It's personal information about us, financial data, healthcare data, behavioral data. And even if you do get access to that data, it's difficult to extract insights and value for a lot of us. So what we do at Mostly AI is enable data access and data insights for everyone. And we do it through a combination of our open source SDK, which I'm going to demo today and works really nicely in Databricks, and also our data intelligence platform, patent pending. Excited about the conversation. Cheers.
So I think you talked also about AI, which is an Austrian company, which is
Yes.
awesome. And is there how does your company operates? Like, is it you're just like building open source technologies, or you still have like other things you handle on your side?
Yeah, it's a combination of open source and also commercial options. So on the open source side, our synthetic data SDK allows folks to take a real world tabular data set and train a generative model from scratch. It's based on our model architecture. It's not based on anyone else's. And then you take that we call a generator, which is a combination of the model weights and the metadata. And from that generator, you can flexibly create privacy preserving synthetic data. So that's the core open source option that we have. We also have a mock data option. And then on the commercial side, the enterprise offering is the Mostly AI data intelligence platform. We obviously got inspiration from you folks on the naming. And that's a full enterprise option. It has an excellent UI so that basically anyone can work with synthetic data, train models, and extract insights. We also have a Python native assistant, which makes it easy in natural language, ChatGPT-esque conversations with your data. So a mix of open source and enterprise options.
Yes, that's amazing. Like Databricks, they have like
Exactly.
all the open source technologies like Spark, MLflow, Delta Lake, Apache Iceberg, Unity Catalog, and that's the core of every like a big company. You need to have this open source.
Yeah, it's huge. It's important for transparency with the community as well. So all of our code then is available in our GitHub repo. It's not a black box. Folks can understand the model architecture and understand why our model makes certain decisions. So yeah, took inspiration from Databricks and others in various aspects.
That's amazing. And can you tell us more about your Databricks your sorry your SDK regarding the
Yeah.
synthetic data? Like what are like the requirements and how can I start using this SDK?
Yeah, cool, of course. So it's available under a fully permissive Apache v2 license. So you can do whatever you like for as long as you like with it. Fully feature complete from a model training and a data generation perspective. So everything we make available in the enterprise platform, you can also do through our Python syntax. And we have a few core primitives, mostly .train, mostly .generate, mostly .probe. So it's kind of in a nutshell, two steps. You train a generative model from scratch, and from that model, which we call a generator, you flexibly create synthetic data. So that's in essence what we do. The synthetic data looks and feels and means the same as your real world data. In terms of requirements, all you need is your source data. So you take a tabular data set, CSV, Parquet, time series, relational database, and feed it into the model. It learns the joint probability distributions, so the patterns distributions of the real world data, deletes the real world data because we're a privacy first company. And then you're left with a model that can create statistically representative synthetic samples that are 100% private. So easier to access, easier to share, and easier to consume across your teams, but also externally with partners.
Yeah, that's amazing. And can you maybe show us a demo of how we can get
Yeah,
started quickly?
would love to. Yeah, absolutely. So let me share screen here. I'll do the entire screen. So Youssef, is that coming through okay for you?
Yes.
Excellent. So this is who we are, data access and data insights for everyone. And as I mentioned, a combination of our Mostly AI data intelligence platform and also our open source synthetic data SDK. So I'll focus on the SDK for the demo. This is our GitHub repo, and you can find all the information needed to get started here. As I mentioned, there is a few key primitives. There's the spine of the workflow. And to get folks help, or help folks get started, I should say, we have a guide here. some usage examples, and also a cheat sheet and more advanced tutorials. So the cool thing is you can, by default, create representative privacy-safe synthetic data, but you can also create better than real data depending on your use cases. So you can mold and manipulate the data in synthetic form. Things like conditionally generate a subset of your customers. You can 10x, 100x the synthetic data. You can rebalance certain attributes. You can change the temperature of the synthetic data to bias towards outliers. So all of that's available for folks. I'll give a quick shout out at this point to the Most AI Prize. I mentioned it to you before, Yusuf. We're running a competition to see who can generate the best synthetic data across both a single table setup and a sequential data setup, giving $100,000 in cash away to promote open data and open source. The competition isn't exclusive to our SDK. You're welcome to use any open source tool, but I think it's pretty cool for a small Series B startup to be run a competition like that for the community's benefit. That said, I'll move into Databricks. And it's a Python library, so you can pip install it in any Python native environment. The scenario I'm going to run through in about 5 minutes is we have a sensitive production data set. As you can see on screen now, it's the US Census income, it's customer data, demographic data, and typically it's usually quite locked down. So when we work with customers, they'll have a production area and that data is proprietary, it's sensitive, it's difficult to access, it's difficult to share. So in the demo, I'm going to show the simple end-to-end workflow of how you can use our SDK directly in Databricks. Again, it's Apache v2 license, so people can run with it from today, and it's fully feature complete. A few simple steps. I've pip installed Most AI already and restarted the Python kernel. So the first thing I'm going to do for the demo is initialize the SDK in local mode. So you can run it in local mode to consume the resources you have available on your laptop or in Databricks, wherever it is that you're pip installing our Python library, or you can run it in client mode and it'll talk to our platform, which is typically deployed within your own secure environment. So I've initialized the client in local mode, and I'm going to read in that table I showed before. And next, I'm going to do training. So I'm going to mostly.train and train a generator from scratch. This is going to print out our end-to-end pipe, but also a training log. And while that's running, let me just explain a little bit about what's going on. So the model is going to pull, analyze, and encode the training data. So the income data set that I showed before. And it's going to learn the statistical patterns and distributions of that real world data, and then create a model, which we call a generator. You'll see in the configuration, I've kept it quite simple for the purpose of a demo. The only thing I've done is cap the training time to 1 minute. So here with the model training already started, that should finish after 60 seconds. There's lots of other things you can do. I mentioned before, it's fully feature complete. So from a training and generation perspective, everything you can do in our enterprise platform, you can do with our open source SDK. That means you can invoke differential privacy. So we have built-in privacy mechanisms, and by default, all of the synthetic data is private. But if you need an additional mathematical guarantee on top, you can invoke differential privacy. You can also create multi-table and time series synthetic data. So you can configure your primary and foreign key. And you've got flexible compute as well. So CPU, GPU, whatever your preference is. We also support text data. So tabular text, time series is all possible via the SDK. So what's happening here, you'll see we are almost finished with training the model. And you can see that the training log, the validation losses begin to flatten out. So even though I've capped the training time at 1 minute, it looks like the model has become saturated on this training data set, which is about 50,000 rows and 15 columns, so a rather small data set. And now we are complete. So we've taken the real world data, we trained a model to understand the statistical patterns and distributions, and it's left us with an artifact, which we call a generator. Again, that's a combination of the metadata and the model weights. And what's pretty cool is that you can
You have the
generate
statistics.
a full HTML report directly in your notebook. And that's really crucial because synthetic data is still, while it's very, very powerful technology, it's still rather niche. So the two questions we always get asked are, how do you know it's accurate and how do you know it's private? Because ultimately it's a drop-in replacement for your sensitive production data. So you need to understand and have trust that it's capable of doing the job and fulfilling your use case. So in this model report here, you'll see there's an overall accuracy score of 95.4%. But there's also a bunch of statistical analysis to demonstrate that the generator has effectively learned the training data. So you can see there's a correlation matrix here. You've got your original data in gray, your synthetic in green. You have a breakdown of the univariate distributions. So each of the columns, you'll see the synthetic data tracks the original data very closely. Same should go for the bivariate distributions, so the pairwise relationships. Again, the synthetic data in green mirrors the gray original data. You have an accuracy per column and also a matrix. We provide even cosine similarity for high dimensional spaces, and we have our privacy metrics as well. So our distance metrics are plotted in the report. So that's a really important piece of the workflow
Yeah.
because you're taking the training data, you have access to it, which ultimately you want to give this generator to a colleague, a partner, another data consumer, so that they can flexibly create synthetic data. And they're going to ask, is it accurate? Is it private? Basically, can I trust it? And that's where the model report comes in.
Yeah, and you have all the statistics generated for you, so you don't need to do this on your behalf, which can be time consuming.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, when we talk to customers, we always do encourage them to first off evaluate the quality of synthetic data outside the platform. So we do have in the tutorials I showed earlier, we have train synthetic test real. So we tell folks, look, create some synthetic data, take it out of the platform or away from the SDK workflow, and train a model using the synthetic data and the input data, the training data, the real data. Have a holdout 20% from the original data, and then compare the results. So we definitely encourage folks to try it out themselves. You don't have to rely on our model report. And then what happens is that's kind of the penny drop moment, because people say, this is my model. This is my experiment. I understand the parameters, and I can see the quality carries over into synthetic data. And from there, once it gets kind of productionized, people rely then on the model report because they've understood from their own experiment that they can trust the accuracy and the privacy. So once you have that report, there's a few things you can do. Another one of our primitives is mostly .probe. You can, without actually having to create a synthetic data set, you can just probe the model for statistically representative, safe synthetic samples. And what's cool about these is, so there's 100, for example. Let's try 100,000. In a matter of seconds, you can probe that model and get statistically representative synthetic samples, and they're fully disposable. So I can keep generating over and over again, and probing, I should say, over and over again, and I'm going to get new synthetic samples, which is really, really cool. And it gives you the ability to inspect and analyze the data on the fly. I mentioned earlier, by default, everything is highly representative and privacy safe, but the beauty of the generator and the beauty of synthetic data is that you can augment it. So you can mold and manipulate your data set. For example, one of the things you can do is conditionally generate a synthetic data set. So in this example, I'm going to feed in a seed file to that generator, which understands my real world data. And I'm going to fix two columns. I'm going to fix the sex and the age. So I want only 35-year-old males in my data set. And what that gives you back then is a mixed real synthetic data set. So I can single in on a specific cohort of my customer base, which are 35-year-old males, fix those attributes as real, and then I can synthetically generate all of the rest of the attributes, which may be deemed to be too sensitive in production form. Have a really cool use case, which we're promoting at the moment with Swiss Post, and they use conditional generation via our open source SDK to fix the longitudinal and latitudinal columns in their data set at an area code level. So that was deemed to be sufficiently aggregated. But what they couldn't do was access the granular customer information. So they fixed the longitudinal, latitudinal, real geo coordinates of their customer database, and then they synthetically generated all of the customer attributes, which is really cool because they went from the ability to access 11% of their customers who had given consent to 100% of their customers in synthetic form. So that's a nice little use case for conditional generation. And then we can move on and use our third primitive, which is mostly .generate. So I can then actually create an artifact, a synthetic data set that we can push back into our catalog. And for this example, I'm just going to use a quick 1,000 examples, or samples, I should say. And as you can see, we're generating that data, and it'll ultimately be published here. Super quick. You can see from an eye-level inspection that it is highly representative of the original data, and you have all of the structure retained, but also deeper the correlations and the statistical quality is represented as well and retained in synthetic form. So I have my data set, which I've generated from my trained model, and now I'm
Then
just
you
going
can
to
save it
simply,
to the catalog, and then you can
exactly,
start doing your basic stuff. What
exactly,
you transforming, cleaning, or whatever you need to.
exactly. That's it in a nutshell. The thing I'd mention is obviously once you get into your catalog here, I have an example already. This is the synthetic version, and I guess the endpoint is, because it's privacy safe, because there's no real world customer information available there, you can enable faster and safer data sharing and data access. And that's the value that we bring as partners. And I should have mentioned at the start, obviously formal ISV partners of Databricks, faster, safer, better access to sensitive data using a synthetic replica. So in this example here, I've given it access to BI, data scientists, etc. So that's it in a nutshell. That's the synthetic data SDK, and that's how it operates inside of your Databricks environment.
I've noticed it's very easy to use. You just need pip install, and you're good to go. And just learn some few APIs to generate the data, and then you can do whatever you want. And it's very easy, very fast,
Yeah,
and robust. I think you no longer have excuse to start doing what you need to do. You can start just use the synthetic generic data, and you're ready to go. Most important
that's
is
it.
open source, which means no fees are
Exactly.
occurred except the compute fees, of course.
That's it in a nutshell. And going back to kind of our mission statement, we just want to broaden the access to data such that people can extract insights. And it's not there to replace data scientists or data literate folks. It's to give folks the ability to access data that they wouldn't normally have access to, and then ideate with it and brainstorm and think, well, what can I do with this high quality data? And folks then, through the power of LLMs, our assistant, your assistant, can ideate and talk in natural language and create a use case and a workflow and a more finished product to bring to your data scientists. So maybe do 80% of the work and say, look, I now want to get this into production. Can you help me with the last 10, 15, 20% of the task to operationalize things? So it increases the ability of an organization to innovate based on, that valuable proprietary data that they have.
Awesome. Thank you so much
Pleasure.
John, for this introduction to your Python SDK. Looking forward to play with it.
Cheers. Appreciate the time, Yusuf. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.